The key to feeling fit, healthy, and happy is finding a sustainable lifestyle that works for you long term and feeling more beautiful by cultivating your mind, body, and soul every single day. Hello, dears, welcome back or welcome. Let's go through the 11 daily habits that I use to stay fit, healthy, and happy. So you've been asking about my diet, exercise, and how I stay fit, and I thought it's really important to also go through my morning routine with you because I do think that everything is interconnected, and when you start your morning well, where you nourish your spirit, so not just cultivating your mind and your body, but also your spirit, it helps to tie everything together. It helps to cultivate a better discipline for you to do your exercise every day or every other day. It helps you with your willpower when it comes to choosing the healthy foods to eat, and generally it helps with your mood, which then makes doing anything easier. So how I usually start my morning is I wake up and I take 5 deep breaths where I go like this. I'm grateful that I'm alive. And I take another 4 deep breaths where I go like, I'm grateful that I'm healthy. So I do that for 5 things that I'm grateful for as I take the deep breaths for it. Because when I'm taking that deep breath, I could really feel the good energy and also good intention filling my body. And I actually started doing the Grateful 5 exercise since I had a huge health scare a few years back. And ever since then, just realizing how precious life is and just the simple, fundamental fact of being alive, it's just wonderful. And so since then, I made it a morning habit as soon as I get up to just be grateful for what I have. And it really can be just the most simple joy in life. Sometimes I'm even grateful for having arms and legs because that in itself is a blessing. Or having the eyes to be able to see the world, or like having a mouth to talk, having the ears to listen to. It's just anything that you're grateful for in your life, and it doesn't have to be complicated. When you start your day like that, it just sets your day in a different tone. Because usually as human beings, we loop in our thoughts and it's easy for us to think negatively about things. Well, most people do at least. So when you set your day in the morning by telling yourself the things that you already have, you start focusing on the half glass full, not the half glass empty. And you can just see immediately how it changes your perspective and put things into perspective for you. Sometimes I even look at the sky and just be in awe of how wonderful it is to be on this magnificent rock that's floating in the universe and the peace that we have. So try starting your day by just thinking about things that you're grateful for and see how it changes your day. The second thing I do is reading the Bible. So sometimes I read the Bible on the bed as soon as I get up and say my Grateful 5. Sometimes I make my coffee and I read the Bible either on this sofa, or sometimes I could be taking a walk outside to also soak in the sun at the same time. You can choose whichever works for you. It also depends on if you believe in God or not. I do think what is important here is less about what you believe in, because that is very subjective and personal, but more about whether or not you believe in the goodness of the universe and that good things will work out for you. Just doing something like that is very good for nourishing your spirit or your soul, if you like. And for me, that is reading the Bible. If you don't like reading the Bible, there are many other things you can do, such as meditating, journaling, going out for a little walk, being in the nature, grounding yourself, anything that helps you feel invigorated, especially when it comes to the spirit part of things. So I pull out my Bible and I usually use the Bible app, the Holy Bible app there, and there are just verses of the day which walks you through the guided scripture, guided prayer, and I just spend 15 minutes where I am in that zone trying to cultivate my spirit. And then after that, I do have a little meditation. Sometimes I meditate in the afternoon, but I would say that when I meditate in the morning, it makes a significant difference to my mood stability, my ability to be focused and present, because otherwise our monkey brains are so prone to feeling anxious, reactive, impulsive. Meditation just really helps to center you and ground you and pulls you out of that incessant loop of thoughts that makes you feel like you can't control what you're doing because your thoughts are controlling what you're doing. So what I started using is the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. I can actually give you guys the 30-day guest pass. Here it says as a member you can give a free month to anyone, so maybe that's good. I actually followed, I think it was 28 days, kind of like a meditation starter introduction by Sam Harris, and it just walked me through all the foundations of how to meditate, understanding the essence behind it, and it was just really helpful. And now, after I'm done with the 28 days starter course, I do a daily meditation, and you don't have to meditate for long, even if it's just for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, or even sometimes 1 minute when you're just waiting for your coffee to be brewed. It makes a huge difference. You start to feel like you have more control of your life instead of just letting your subconscious and your looping negative, repetitive thoughts run the show. After I meditate, I usually have to feed my dogs. I've got 3 Labradors, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. 2 bigger ones at I think 8 or 9 months, and then the smaller one is at 13th week. So they need a lot of attention. But it really gets me to go out, and they really anchor me, because I used to have more anxiety, I would say, with different things in life, but then they just calmed me, grounded me, and brings me back to the present. When you interact with nature and animals, it just reminds you that you're very much a part of them, and also you feel more happy because you're more grounded instead of just spending time on the laptop all the time or in your head all the time. So I encourage you to get out more often as well. So when I feed the dogs, because it is outside, I do get to soak in the sun, which helps with the circadian rhythm. If you take some sun in the morning, the sun you need to get has to be outside instead of indoor, because it works differently. That's why I learned from the Huberman Lab podcast. I do think his podcasts are very good for making you understand more about health and very many different facets of health. Now, this part is really important, and I would say the core idea behind it is compounding. I do think that you are the accumulation of what you do every single day. You become the habits you do every single day. So I'm very careful in choosing how to spend my time, because I know that if every single time I put my makeup on, or I'm walking the dogs, I'm listening to a podcast or a book, and every single day that might be 15-20 minutes, then you can do the math of how it compounds to weeks, to months, to year. And I do think in this day and age, people are reading less and less just because there are so many entertainment methods. You can just scroll on the phone for ages or be in different rabbit holes of the internet. But then when you read, especially when you read from the very prominent authors of their discipline, like for example, reading Adam Smith on economics, Sigmund Freud on psychology, Tao Te Ching on philosophy. When you read the original text of the original thinkers, it really helps you be more wise. And when you become more wise by reading more, you're kind of stealing the ideas and the mindset of these prominent thinkers, and it helps you to think better, make better decisions. Generally, it extends to every aspect of your life. And you become more elegant as well, because you actually have your own opinions. Elegance, again, as I talk about in the other videos, is not something that you wear or the makeup you put on or just the body language you have, but who you are from the inside as well. And I think reading really helps with that. So usually when I'm putting my makeup on, I will put on a podcast, or I'm listening to a book on Spotify. They have free books these days, or on Audible. One of my recent favorites is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, a guide to wealth and happiness. And I learned so much from this book. I actually learned a very powerful idea about happiness from this book yesterday, which is whenever something unpleasant happens, either accept it, change it, or leave it. Don't sit there and wish you can change it but not change it. Don't sit there and wish you can accept it and not accept it, because that is what leads to suffering and struggle, which is what we don't want. And the other very powerful idea is that for every negative thing that happens in your life, there is always something positive to be found in it. My mom is so wise, and actually she's been teaching me this since I was a child, which is for every situation, you're either gaining something or you're learning something. You're never losing on both ends. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it, even the worst thing that can happen to you, let's say at work, it's being late to a very important meeting. You might be blaming yourself badly for that. But then you're thinking, actually, I spent a longer time enjoying my coffee this morning. That's why I was late. So for every single negative thing that happens, you can really try to find something good out of it. And that just changes your mindset. It's like a little mindset hack for happiness. Earlier, I was saying that everything is interconnected. And if you try to connect all these pieces together, you can see that when you cultivate your mind and your spirit, every morning you anchor yourself, you ground yourself, you calm your mind. That just helps you to make better decisions and be a better person in general, which extends to every area of your life. And all of that compounds. Just think about how much better you can be in a month's time. Next, I want to show you my normal weekly diet and also the exercise I do. Actually, I already got ready for ballet class because I wanted to film this video early and show you guys the breakfast I'm going to have before I go. Usually before I exercise in the morning, in this case I'm having a ballet class, I like to keep it light but also filling enough so I can have some energy for the class. So there you go, I am having some sweet potatoes. These are Japanese sweet potatoes. They are so delicious. It just keeps you full for a long time and also low in calories. And I've got some eggs here. I usually do 2 eggs in the morning or 1 egg, and then I have 1 more for snack. So I just finished my ballet class and I got a little treat for myself, which is an acai bowl. I do find that an acai bowl is a nice balance between something that is sugary and like a treat, but also somewhat healthy. Because acai itself, it's a superfood, and with all the fruits and granola on top, I do think it is a good compromise if you want a treat, but you don't want it to be very high in calories and you want it to be somewhat nutritious. I would always go for an acai bowl instead of something like a brownie or cupcake. If I'm not having the acai bowl as a snack, I probably will be having the egg that I boiled for the extra from the morning, or some sweet potato, a banana, or some blueberries. Again, I'm sticking to whole clean food. I don't follow a particular kind of diet or strict regimen, but what's really important for me, and I think that has worked so well for me in staying fit long term, is I just choose whole foods that is very clean and something that is cooked with as little additives and extra flavorings as possible. Think about chicken that's only cooked with salt, pepper, and some herbs. Or broccoli, where I just simmer it and boil it in the water with some olive oil and then put some salt on top. It is something that is closest to its original form as possible. And I do think that as long as you follow this general rule of thumb, you try to segment your plate between proteins, vegetables, and healthy carbs, so opt for healthier brown rice or purple rice instead of white rice, or even having sweet potato or potato sometimes instead of rice. As long as you follow these 2 rules, it just makes having a healthy, fit lifestyle much easier. When it comes to staying fit and healthy, I never like to think of it as a diet, because when you're on a crash diet, you lose weight and then it bounces back usually. When we want to stay fit, it needs to be a lifestyle that we follow, where we can do the same thing day in and day out and still feel comfortable and happy with what we're eating and what we're doing. That's the only way that is going to be sustainable. When you're used to sugary or very salty food, it does take some time to transition into a new kind of lifestyle, but then you're going to get used to it over time when it becomes a new habit. And that's like everything we do in life. Everything you do now is a habit, but you can adopt new habits and get rid of the not so healthy habits, which can help you maintain a fit and healthy lifestyle that is sustainable. This is what I'm going to have for lunch today. I'm not going to cook today because my family had some leftover and it was supposed to be taco salad. That is why we've got the avocado, the tomato, and then we've also got the minced beef here, which are all very healthy, clean, and whole foods. I don't usually put cheese in my food, especially for lunch. I only usually do it on the weekends as a little treat. But then when we have food together, it is usually a little bit more naughty. If I was going to be cooking today, then I usually stick to the staple foods that I always have in my fridge. And I highly recommend that you have these foods as well, because it's just really easy to mix and match these foods and create really healthy and yummy recipes. First up, I have cherry tomato tomatoes. Usually I pair just maybe 5-6 cherry tomatoes where I cut in half, and then I pair them with half an avocado and with some boiled eggs. So I usually have 2 boiled eggs, which I have with the avocado and tomatoes. Sometimes I have them for breakfast, sometimes I have them for lunch. And on top, I just sprinkle some salt, maybe pepper, and a little bit of olive oil, if that is what you like. And then I would also have my bell peppers. I love cooking pasta with bell peppers. I usually mix bell peppers, mushroom, little bit of cream, not too much, some chicken. That's a really good recipe. And then I've got my vine tomatoes. Tomatoes are just so healthy for you. It's so refreshing as well. And you can put them in basically any recipe. Next up, I've got my broccoli. Broccoli is really my lifesaver because it is one of the most nutritious vegetable, and I find them so easy to cook because all you have to do is cut them into little single pieces. I would boil maybe 2 bowls of water, and once that starts bubbling, I put the broccoli in, and once that starts bubbling as well, I just pour a little bit of olive oil on top and a little bit of salt, and then maybe for 3 minutes or so I scoop it up and it's all done. It's so healthy and it's so low in calories as well. Next up, I've got my carrots. Carrots are just really nice as roasted vegetables, and you can have them for lunch or for dinner, and usually pair them with chicken and some potatoes or sweet potatoes. So again, the general rule of thumb I follow is go for clean whole foods, add as little flavoring and additives as possible. So stick to salt, pepper, herbs and olive oil, so be as natural as possible. And on your dish, you want to have a balanced portion of each thing. Usually I will have my meat as a little less than 50%, and then I will try to have as much vegetables as possible. If meat was 40%, vegetables were another 40%, then the leftover percentage would be the carbs. And I try to follow that rule as much as possible, which worked so well for me because I've tried dieting before or follow a particular kind of diet, but when it's so strict with not much flexibility, not only is it not sustainable, but you don't have a happy life. So then I really just follow this balanced lifestyle where I have a balanced portion of each thing, of the macronutrients on my dish, and also go for clean whole foods, and that has just worked wonders. And of course, I have the eggs. These are my favorite ingredients to have at home because you can do anything with them. You can boil them, steam them, omelette them, mix them into little soups. You can do anything with them, and they're so high in protein. So if eggs can be added to your diet with no other issues, because I know sometimes some people might avoid eggs for all sorts of different reasons, then this is a really good ingredient to have in your fridge. Since I'm not cooking lunch today, it's hard for me to show you exactly what I do with them, but I'm just going to walk you through, and hopefully for a future video I can walk you through the cooking process as well. So just imagine I had some chicken breast right now, right? I'm going to slice them into pieces. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Sometimes when I cook is also just vibe cooking, where I'm like, okay, enough salt, enough oil, it should taste good, and you taste it, and then you go trial and error. So let's say I've sliced up the chicken breast. I'm going to now put some olive oil, herbs like rosemary or parsley and different kind of Italian herbs inside, with some salt and pepper, and I just use my hands and mix them all together. Sometimes I let it stay for longer. If I don't have enough time, I just go straight to the pan where I drizzle a little bit of olive oil on top. I put the chicken breast inside, cook until they're cooked. You can just try it if you're not sure. Then I take it out. That's it. That's all I do with the chicken breast. Then I usually go for broccoli or courgette. If I do broccoli, I always do it the same style, which is I boil the water, put it in. Once it bubbles, I put the broccoli in, and then once that bubbles again, I put salt, olive oil, wait for 3 minutes, and that is it. If I'm feeling like rice, I do love rice, but I try to avoid it just because it is refined carbs. I will have my rice. But then again, I'm sticking to the portion segment that I talked about with you have your meat, you have your veggies, and you have your rice. Preferably have as little refined carbs as possible and have more veggies and definitely enough protein for your weight and your height. And that will be a normal signature dish for me from Monday to Friday. And sometimes I change up the meat. So if I'm not having chicken, maybe I'm going to be having minced beef, but rarely do I have pork. I don't usually cook pork at home. I do eat it in restaurants, but then at home, I try to stick to the protein that is easier to cook. For dinner, I usually use very much the same kind of ingredients, but the only difference is that usually at lunch, I might have more carbs because I do think that my body has more time to digest throughout the day. And for dinner, I try to keep it slightly lighter. So instead of having lots of carbs or even carbs at all, I would just have my meat and vegetables. And I noticed that ever since I started doing that, which actually echoes that Chinese principle of trying to eat as little as possible for dinner, not only is it easier for me to sleep and also chill after dinner, but also I wake up with a less puffy face and I feel less heavy as I wake up. Speaking of exercises, I recently took up ballet very seriously because last time I did it, I probably was 6 and I didn't like it. But then recently, I just really wanted to try it again. And also because ever since I got into Pilates, I just fall in love with more gentle and slower movements. I've been dancing on and off my whole life. I've done belly dancing before, hip hop, street dance, which was very different to ballet now. But I think it definitely gave me a good foundation of being in love with movements and also expression. So at the moment, I'm going to 2 different ballet schools and I go usually on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday. On the days that I don't do ballet, I usually do a cardio dance where I just follow a YouTube video, or I do a session of Pilates. And usually these sessions go from 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. So I really try to exercise in some sort of way from Monday to Friday, if not up to Saturday as well. Whenever I don't move my body, I just feel like there is something really uncomfortable with it and I just need to move it in one way or the other. And I do think once you get into the habit of exercising, you will also really have this addiction to move. Another way I try to stay fit is I try to get my steps in as much as possible. So every single day, I aim for at least 7,000 to 10K steps. And if I don't get my steps in the day, usually if I'm watching a movie or something, I'll be walking around the house or at least moving in one way or the other. Having an Apple Watch definitely helps with that because I signed up for this app called Sweatcoin and it just counts my steps in like that, which is very satisfying to see. And you also earn some crypto coins. One more thing I started doing daily as well is stretching. I just try to stretch as much as possible at every opportunity I have. If I'm reading or watching a movie or just sitting on the sofa chilling, I just try to stretch as much as possible. It doesn't matter where you go, half a split, upwards, downwards, left or right. Just try to move your body, and that's really the way to stay fit. Remember, the key here is really finding a lifestyle that not only makes you happy, but is sustainable and healthy, because that's the only way that whatever you're doing is going to work in the long term. So there you go. These are the habits I figured out through trial and error that works the best for me from all these years. Let me know what keeps you fit and happy. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video.